Hi dear students, in this class I would like to discuss observational research and experimental research. In science there are mainly two types of research is employed. One is observational research and the second one is the experimental research. Here we can see each separately. First we can see the observational research. Okay, first we can see the observational research. In observational research, the researcher will measure or survey members of a sample without trying to affect them. Okay, researcher will measure or survey the members of sample without making any effect on them. Okay, and in observational research, the researcher will not question or communicate with the members of sample, but they will record the behavioral pattern. Okay, they will record the behavioral pattern. Okay, they will record the behavioral pattern without questioning or communicating with them. That means there is no direct contact with them. Okay, they will record the behavioral pattern. Okay, and they will without questioning or communicating with them. That means the researcher will simply observe what is happening and they will record what they observed. Okay, the researcher will observe what is happening in that group and they will record the observation. Okay, and in observational research, the researcher do not impose any kind of treatment or restriction to the group. Okay, in observational research, researcher will not give any kind of treatment. They will not give any kind of treatment. That means they will not interfere in that group. They will not make any kind of treatment or restriction to that group. And that means they will not research in observational research. The researcher will not make any manipulation the environment where that sample group is residing. Okay, the researcher will not make any manipulation in the environment of that specific group. Okay, and in observational research, the researcher will not have any control over the participants. Okay, the researcher will not have any control on the members of sample. Okay, there is no control for the researcher on the members of samples. And compared to the experimental research, the observational studies are less expensive. Okay, compared to experimental research, this observational research are less expensive. But compared to the experimental research, this observational research are time consuming. Okay, observational research are time consuming. The time required for the completion of observational studies can be several years to decades. There are different types of observational research is there. Okay, different types of observational research is there. The first one is a cohort study. Okay, first one is a cohort study. In this study, the researcher will observe a group of people who have a common characteristics. Okay, the researcher will observe a group of people who have a common characteristics. Okay, that means this common character means maybe like age group or gender or other demographics. Okay, that means in this case, researcher will observe a group of people who have a common characteristics. That means categorized like age. Okay, so that means age group between 30 to 40 age, or 40 to 50 age. That group the researcher will observe. Sometimes gender means they will observe the gender, male or female group, like that they will observe. Okay, there is a cohort study, and the second one is a case control study. Okay, second study, research, observational research study is a case control study. Okay, here one case will be there. Okay, case means this type of study investigate one group with a medical condition. For example, one group with a medical condition, and one group without it. Okay, without it. One group with medical condition and one group without it. Okay, and this type of case control studies can help researchers discover the effect of disease. Okay, for example, in the case control study, we can investigate, take one group as a who affected the COVID-19, and another one group that is with the not affected the COVID-19. So we can study what are the post-COVID symptoms. Okay, the post-COVID symptoms. For that, to study that case control study, we can observe the people who suffered, who had who suffered COVID-19, and one group without those does not affect the COVID-19. That's the case control study. So this case control study can help researcher discover the effect of disease. So we can for example, we can study the effect of COVID-19 using this case control study. And the next study is that cross-sectional study. Okay, in cross-sectional study, focus on one group of people at a certain point in time. Okay, one group of people at a certain point in time. So these two sections. Okay, that means defined group and the point in time. Okay, cross or intersect, thus giving the study its name. Okay, this means group of people at a certain time, certain point in time, that is observed in the case of cross-sectional study. Okay, group of people at a certain point in time, that's a cross-sectional study. Now we can see the experimental research. Okay, now we can see the experimental research. Okay, in the case of experimental research, the researcher randomly assign a treatment to a group so that the researcher can draw the cause and effect. Okay, in the case of experimental research, the researcher give a treatment into a group. Okay, researcher will give a treatment to a group so that the researcher can understand the cause and effect of that treatment. Okay, the researcher can understand the cause and effect of treatment. Okay, for example, if you want to learn the effect of a medicine, so we can give medicine to a group. So from that, after giving that medicine, we can check the effect of that medicine. Okay, that means we'll treat a group. Okay, and this random assignment of treatment that differentiate observational and experimental research. Okay, that random assignment of treatment that differentiate the observational and experimental research. In the case of observational research, there is no treatment, but the case of experimental research, there is a treatment is there. So that makes that differentiate both. Okay, and the in the experimental research, the researcher experiment and manipulate the environment of the object. Okay, the researcher will experiment and manipulate the environment of that group. Okay, but in the case of observational research, there is no manipulation or there is no experiment. Okay, there is no manipulation. Okay, and the researcher will experiment and manipulate the environment of the object to measure the response. Okay, to measure the response, to get the response. Okay, to get the response, the researcher will experiment and manipulate the environment of a group, okay, of the subject or the subject, and the evidence that is we get from the experimental research, that is most stronger than the observational research. Okay, the evidence provided by the experimental research is more stronger than the evidence observed in observational research. Okay, and the experimental research are closely monitored. Okay, experimental research are closely monitored and compared to observational research. The experimental research are more expensive. Okay, the experimental research are more expensive, but these experimental research are less time consuming. Okay, compared to observational research, this experimental research are less time consuming, but it is expensive. And in experimental research, okay, the research conducted with a specific approaches using two sets of variables. That means there will be two variables is the when conducting an experimental research. So the first variable is the independent variable, and the second one is the dependent variable. Okay, the first variable is the independent variable, and second one is the dependent variable. Okay, actually this independent variable is the cause. Okay, independent variable is the cause. Okay, its value, the value of independent variable will be the independent. Okay, its value is independent of other variables in your study. Okay, actually this independent variable is a cause, and the second variable is a dependent variable, and the dependent variable is the effect. Okay, and this dependent variables value will be changed depends on the changes that's occurred in independent variable. Okay, that means two variable is the independent variable is the that independent variable is the cause, and this independent variable will be value will be independent. That means that may vary. Okay, and the second variable is a dependent variable. Dependent variable is the effect, so its value will be depends on the independent variable. The independent variable value is changed, then dependent value will be also changed. For example, our research question is the how the plant species tolerate salt water. Okay, how will the plant species tolerate the salt water? That is our research question. Here you can see this is the independent variable. Okay, this is the independent variable, that the concentration of salt order in the plants water. Okay, how much amount of salt is the that is here. Okay, and this independent variables is value is make effect on this dependent variable. Okay, here you see the dependent variable, the plant growth, plant wilting, plant survival rate. Okay, that means if here you added more amount of salt. Okay, if you increase the you change the independent variable value. Okay, that means if you add more amount of salt here, then the plant growth will be decrease. Okay, and plant wilting will be increase. Okay, plant wilting increase, and plant survival rate also will decrease. Okay, that means if that salt amount is the independent variable that we can change. Okay, that will be changed. So this change will affect here. Okay, that means if you add more salt, then the plant growth will decrease, and the plant survival also will be decreased. Then if you reduce the salt amount, then the plant growth will be increase, and plant wilting will be slowed down, and the plant survival rate will be increase. Okay, that means this dependent variable, these factors will depends this independent variable. So that means if the change in independent variable, that will reflect in the dependent variable. These are the variables in the experimental research. And in any experimental research, there will be two groups will be there. Okay, there will be two groups will be there. One group is treated group, and other group is a control group. Okay, one group is a treated group, and other group is a control group. In this treated group, this group receive the treatment or instruction. Okay, in the experiment, this group will receive the treatment or instruction, and the controlled group will not receive treatment or instruction. Okay, this is just a control. So the in experimental research, there is a two groups is there. One is treated group and one is a control group. This treated group will receive the treatment or instruction, but the control group will not receive treatment or instruction. Okay, This is the observational and experimental research. We already told that for the uh, observational research, that is a less expensive, but the experimental research is expensive, and the observational research will be time consuming, but the experimental research is compared to observational research is less time consuming. Okay, this is the observational and experimental research. Okay, and the value when the evidence and the or the result obtained in the experimental research is more stronger than the observational research. Okay, so I hope you understood this. Thank you for listening.